Now I wish to welcome Provost Michael T. Brown, who will be in conversation with Vice Chancellor Francesca Vega. As the UC System-wide Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, long title, well-deserved. Michael has a lot on his plate, so we're really lucky that he is here. Within this, he directs the development of academic and research policies and provides administrative oversight of the university's academic planning efforts and associated budget matters. So he is here to learn and to provide wisdom at the same time, just as we all are. Vice Chancellor Francesca Vega leads UC San Francisco's Office for Community and Government Relations and has spent 2 decades in public higher education advancing community and government relations. So always a great force in that nexus. So we're really thrilled to have you here in conversation. So please join me in welcoming both Michael and Francesca.
Good morning, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here. This is incredibly exciting, and I have to say, in my 5 months in this role with UC San Francisco, I have not had a moment like this yet. I know it's shocking, but sitting in a room with all of your faces, it is just a pleasure. I was looking forward to this opportunity to get to know Provost Brown and to be here with you all week. Like many of you, I've had a very intense week, so this was kind of this was something to look forward to. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to be easy on you, but you be easy on me too. So just to kick off, I want to kind of frame what you might be working with and what kind of challenges that you face on a day-to-day. I know you were appointed to the UC system in this role in 2017, and you were tasked with furthering student success, supporting academic excellence, and fostering diversity. So very easy issues. I just want to get a sense, and I think to start this conversation, it would be helpful for you to talk through some of the maybe more obvious challenges coming into that role in 2017 that you faced, and some of the challenges, and we'll obviously do a deeper dive as we continue the conversation, but some of the challenges that maybe weren't as obvious that became apparent to you were going to have to spend a lot of time on?
Well, Vice Chancellor Vega, thank you for that question or set of questions.
Yes, set of questions.
Let me just say that that the tasks that I was tasked with were actually tasks that I had tasked myself to do. I had to be actually talked into applying for this job. I was happy in Santa Barbara. And I'm not actually so happy here. The work is a heavy load, but I took it for the work. Yeah. And I saw it as an opportunity to advance greater institutional diversity and inclusion at all levels of the university. And I thought and still believe that doing so is an existential matter for the university. Yes. That the university constituency of today is increasingly multicultural, multinational, multi-ethnic. Our schools are reflecting that. But some of our institutions, particularly our greatest institutions, don't necessarily reflect that. And, well, not necessarily, they don't reflect that, okay? Let's just be straight up with it, right? So, and it's hard to ask people to invest in an institution that is supposed to be an institution that inspires hope and opportunity, and don't see it that the people of that state, in this case ours, don't see themselves reflected in that institution. It's a hard thing to ask them than to invest in it.
Exactly.
So I actually love the University of California, and I love the idea of it. The idea of the University of California is that it is the greatest of public higher education that basically you can have, but available on as democratic a basis as possible. I'm not saying we achieve that vision.
Yes.
That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I said that idea of that, I'm in love with that. And I mean that. I love it. And I want to help make that real. And so I'm glad the president gave me the chance to do it, and that's what I'm working on doing. But to do those kinds of things takes sustained work and effort, and you bleed a little bit in that process, because there ain't nothing easy about it, as you know.
Yeah.
But those are the things that move me. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, what do you want me to really say?
That actually, yes, I can relate to that. I think everyone in this room, whether you're just starting out your career or you're a veteran with the UC, I think we can relate to that. Let's go to where you're at now. So that's big picture, and that never goes away. What are your challenges, or what keeps you up at night now?
Well, two things. The challenge of achieving that vision, achieving that ideal. So I think about that all the time. I'm a very limited person. You know, I'm a narrow person. I'm a person of that mission. So if you ask me, well, what other kind of things do you do for fun? There ain't too many. No, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm up here. My family lives in Santa Barbara. I still have a son that he's in high school in Santa Barbara. I spend most of my time away from my family. But I'm not asking anybody to bleed for me. I'm just trying to tell you that I'm up here for a mission. And so that mission occupies my mind. This is football season. I love football. So I mean, I'm not too narrow. I might be overly narrow, but I ain't too narrow. So, but when football season's over, it's just work for me. So, y'all think I'm kidding. And then the second thing, besides the mission itself, is trying to find ways of inspiring investment in that mission of the University of California. Because just when the state is, let's just say it's browning, and just when we're actually doing better at including, I ain't saying we've achieved everything we need to achieve, but we're doing better. The state is pulling its investment in the university. And I would like to be part of a solution that all of us should want to be part of a solution of reversing that, so that the vision of the best of higher education and all of its levels of public higher education is available on as optimally inclusive basis as it can possibly be. That occupies my mind and heart. So I'm hoping it matters to you. You don't have to be as invested in it as I am. I mean, there are nerds in life. There are people who are just narrow. There ain't many things they can do well, but the things that they can do, that's what they focus on. This is that for me. I don't necessarily ask that for everybody else, but I hope that matters to you, and where you can link up with that mission. I think this university needs that, and I think the state needs it, quite frankly.
So that's a perfect segue.
I know I talk too much.
No, you're You're good. That you've touched on a lot of key points that I think that everyone being here today, we feel the same. We're obviously all connected more than just working for the UC, to state the obvious. That being said, your ascension to this role, you talked about how much you thought your role at Santa Barbara was fun. There is a responsibility, I understand that. But what are the factors that helped you along the way? You know, that's the question that I'm sure you hear often. How did you get here? Yes, there was an opportunity. There was a hand extended to you for this role. But along the way, if you could just talk through some of the, whether it was mentors, whether it was just your focus, as you said, you're narrowly focused on this mission. If you could talk through that.
I bet you that my story is like many of yours. I will always identify people who made a difference for me. And in particular, I won't go into the whole long history. I want to emphasize that you can have talent, you can have ability, you can have the capacity to do things in you. But unless somebody recognizes that and takes time with you to either one, develop that, or just to recognize it and give you opportunity for other things, unless that happens, for people like us who are out of the normal cycle of things, then it don't happen. So I can point to just even for this job, when they were searching, I didn't even think about the job. Somebody reached out to me, and they reached out to me because they knew me and honored what they thought I could bring to the table and brought me to the attention of the search committee. And it happened to be that they were well-placed people. I'll name one of them because he was on the search committee, and I'll just honor him, George Blumenthal. He's director of the Center for the Study of Higher Education here now, but he was chancellor at Santa Cruz. But he was on the search committee. And he knew me, and he did something else for me earlier. This is how he knew me. But anyway, he brought me to that committee and convinced me to throw my hat in. It took multiple calls because I didn't think they were serious. I thought they were just interested, get somebody black in the pool.
I can relate.
and that you have fulfilled your criteria, but they didn't really want me. And plus also, my vision for the person in this role, the greatest of scholars, the greatest of educators, that wasn't me. Or at least I didn't see myself that way. So, but he thought and believed, and it turned out that there were other people on the search committee who said, I know him. Talk him into running for this. Before that, by the way, I'll mention George again. The reason why I had this opportunity was largely because of some governance work I had done in the Academic Senate. I've been chair of the Academic Senate. Near as I know, I'm the only African-American who's ever been chair of the system-wide Academic Senate. And I don't say that with a great deal of joy.
Right.
That's actually a sad thing to kind of say. But he was vital in that. The way that happened was at an earlier time, there was a committee in the Academic Senate called the Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools that sets policy, admissions policy for the university. And I was on that committee, but I was not chair of it. The folks that were chair and vice chair did not want me to be the next vice chair or chair. And the administration didn't want to. I can tell you why later, but they didn't want it. But he was incoming vice chair for the Academic Senate at that time and saw what I could bring to it. He had a conversation with me, and he wanted to know what my commitment was. And I told him I was being straight up where I was coming from. And he gave me the opportunity. Giving people opportunity matters. Indeed. And I think what the University of California really is or should be is not just bringing people here out of a meritocracy. We distribute opportunity. Unless that opportunity is distributed in a way that is equitable, yes, then it ain't right. I'm sorry, I get passionate about this. So sorry.
So you touched on a couple things that I want to explore further with you. You talked about having that mentor or even sponsor in George.
We all need that.
We all need it. That needs to be a part of our service. That needs to be a part of when we look at how we engage. That is a part of it. And we need to think through that and what that looks like. If it's ensuring that on our calendars that we have time to sit and have a coffee with someone where there's no ask, there's no, well, we have to cover this piece of work or business, but it's truly to sit and to build. And it could go both ways. It's mutually beneficial when you mentor, and that's something that I too feel very passionately about. But let's take it.
And particularly to those who are not part of that system. They're not included. It's easier to do that with those who are.
Yes, that's true.
But to think outside of that to the unincluded and to reach out for them.
Exactly.
So I just had to add that.
No, that is exactly true. So what about those that maybe don't have the ability or the skills? You can always learn the skills to advocate for yourself or to put themselves in a room. Maybe they don't have mentors, or they're in an environment where, unfortunately, there isn't that kind of leadership, or leadership is not willing to be open to professional development or mentoring. And unfortunately, we know that happens within our own communities of professionals of color, women. What would you say, or what kind of advice would you give to someone who might be mid-career, who wants to do more? Maybe they see opportunities or want to lead in a more creative way, but they don't have a George. What kind of advice, or what would you say to those folks so they can highlight their leadership or their passion?
Well, now I'm going to get a little spiritual on you. I didn't expect that question, but I'll get a little spiritual on you. I do come from a religious culture, and there's a belief system that's a part of the one I was a part of that says, one, your gift will make room for you. I didn't know I was going to be here, and I didn't know I'd have a George. All I knew was what I thought I could do. And I set about doing that as best I can. What has happened for me in my journey is along the way, someone recognized it. Because that by itself ain't enough, but it creates something for you. It creates a connection for you. So I always ask people that, number one, you can invest in you. You can invest in your talent. You can invest in your experiences. You will need more than that, but you can do that. So do what you can do. The second thing is learn to say yes to opportunities. Indeed. Because most of us who are outside of certain experiences, when it's a foreign thing, the natural thing is to play it safe. That's just natural. That's even self-preservation too. I mean, I get that. I was afraid to come up here. I'd never been a provost before. And I wasn't even sure I could do the job. And I'm sure I ain't doing it like somebody else would do it, but I'm doing it like I can do it. And I think a person should learn to say yes to opportunity and invest in their own time of preparation.
Indeed.
You know,
Yes.
Because you don't know where that's leading you.
Exactly.
I did not know I would have ever been provost. I didn't know I'd ever been chair of the academic senate. I never knew I'd be Boris chair. I never knew I'd be a professor at the university. I'm a professor at the University of California. I'm a full professor at the University of California. I got a permanent job at the University of California. I never had that in my mind. Little kid from San Bernardino, from the hood of San Bernardino. There's a freeway over where my house used to be. That tells you what kind of neighborhood I lived in. So, I'm sorry, I talked too much, but no. That's what I would say.
Where's Alfred? Time check. Where are we? Okay. So
y'all can get me out of here.
I want to switch gears. Let's talk about something light, affirmative action. How do you think affirmative action has impacted the numbers of, or I should say the bench, let's not even, the bench, and we can use that in the most broad way. Building a bench, whether it's building a bench of leaders, building a bench of PhDs, building a bench of UC visionaries or public higher education visionaries. How do you think, and if you could draw connections to your work, what have you seen the most? I mean, I think we all can, we get it for the most part, but just if you could do a deeper dive into what the impact of affirmative action has been.
I will say that, that as long as race, ethnic group membership, gender, any kind of classification you can identify, as long as it makes a difference in people's opportunities, you're going to need affirmative action. You're going to need special efforts to go beyond the normal to be more inclusive. And we would all like there to be a time where we don't need all those special efforts. That would be really nice. But we don't live in them times. And it is, for example, I'm in the midst of finishing up a search for a particular position. And it's a high-level position. And it's hard, if you're not in certain pipelines, it's hard to even be qualified to, if you're a diverse candidate, to even be in the pool. That takes work. You have to look in non-traditional areas for that talent. It ain't like the talent ain't out there.
Yes.
But you're going to have to expend extra effort. Mm-hmm. So when I think of affirmative action, I just think of extra effort to be inclusive. And to do that means it got to matter to you. But until it matters to you, you need the requirement to do it. Because some people, it don't matter to them.
Exactly. So you touched on that. But you need to have people at the table that it matters to them and they get the extra effort it will take. That's the conundrum.
You said it better. Well, and it's just the world we're living in. Now, that's why diversification and greater inclusion is slow, even when you want to.
What have you done, given what you just shared and the reality of affirmative action, what have you done in this role to promote equity and inclusion and diversity?
Well, in my particular case, I'm blessed to have an extraordinary team. What I found when I got this job, that I already had partners in Yvette Goulat. I already had partners in Pamela Brown. I already had partners in my whole leadership team. They were already ready. And so all I needed to do was say, hey, this is what I want to do. They said, shoot, we can help you there. So I look like I'm very effective, but really I've just unleashed my team. And so we were able to do things like, and then I listen well too. So for example, we had about a $5 million investment in some diversity-oriented programs. And I was listening at one of our executive meetings, and I said, they were talking about these sorts of funds. I ain't gonna label them, but there were these sorts of funds. And they only had to be used for a particular purpose. And they didn't have enough use for they didn't have enough purposes for those funds. I said, I got a purpose for those funds. And Janet, would you entertain a proposal to use those funds to advance diversity? She said, that sounds like a good old idea. I went back to my team. They crafted a developmental plan that dealt with doubling the investment that the state was already making in advancing faculty diversity. They to expand PPFP, the President's Postdoctoral Fellowship Program, to change a program that was a CSU doctoral dissertation initiative that was actually intended to be a pipeline for Latinx into the university. And I said, well, look, let's just call it straight out. Let's make it an HSI initiative. And we have a lot of campuses, actually, not just CSUs that are HSI institutions. Let's do that and expand that. And to expand our UC HBCU program. So a developmental program that looked at graduate education all the way to postdoc to professorship. So we began to envision it in a developmental framework. And it only took listening to opportunity and marrying it with the vision and effort of my team. So I don't take credit for that. I mean, I had a role, but it was a role as a part of a team.
Well, you were there with the vision and you leaned into that, so.
Well, why have money that's not being used?
So you touched on the support from President Napolitano.
And she signed, she didn't have to.
Yes.
I tried to make it hard for her to say no, but it wasn't that hard.
Yes.
She was on board.
She has been an outspoken advocate for DACA. How do you think the UC's stance and visible support around DACA specifically has shaped the national conversation? And where do you see the role of the University of California, of public higher education? Where do you see the role in this discussion going forward?
Well, we are waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on DACA. And I don't know where that's going to go. I think all of us are proud of the University of California's position with respect to DACA and DACA students. My problem is that there are students that ain't DACA but are DACA, but the door is closed. in terms of that kind of legal remedy. So no matter what the Supreme Court does, that deals with a defined group that's already been defined. But the problem of undocumented students and their families and staff and faculty and that remains. So the work remains. I think we should, and I expect us to. I know Janet has done what she can during the time she's here, and she's going to prepare us for whatever the consequences of that ruling. But the work remains and will remain for us who continue with this university even after Janet's leadership is gone. I will say, and I'm happy to say, that I believe our regents care. I can't believe we won't have a next generation of presidential leadership who won't care about this issue and partner, and it will take more than the University of California. We can exhibit some kind of leadership, but it'll take partnership with state government officials. Yes. The problem is bigger.
Yes, and it's something that I think my counterparts in the government community relations world can definitely have a hand in helping to move that needle. So I'm going to, how are we? We're good, okay. As a psychologist, how do you feel when you look at the polarization? I'm gonna lay down and ask for advice now. What?
I don't see the couch. But
well, this chair is pretty. Okay. How do you feel about when we look at the polarization that the United States is facing? I think that we could have a whole session on how the current political climate has impacted our work and our day-to-day, our frustration and how we deal with that in the work that we do. What are your thoughts on it? And
Francesca, I'm actually concerned about the fraying of the social fabric. I personally am. And I see it at all levels. And I mean right and left. I'm apolitical on this one. Everybody thinks they're right. Everybody want to yell at one another to force everybody to do what they want to do, because people have given up hope that they can really convince and persuade.
Exactly.
And everybody has their own data. I forget who the politician used to say. I was Moynihan, I think. He used to argue with other legislators. He says, you have a right to your own opinion, but you don't have a right to your own facts. Well, nowadays, people have their right to their own facts. So we can't even agree about the facts. And that makes it hard for people to come together. I don't know what we can do about that. I try myself. That's all I try to, I try to care about other people because, I care about other people. And I would like them to care about me. And I try to care about their opinions even if I don't agree with them. Because sometimes I haven't listened well enough to understand their opinion. To see the value in it. Yeah. And I try not to care as much about how that opinion is packaged, what color it's come from, what gender it's come from, what sexual orientation it has come from. That's another human being. I'm trying to attend to them. I may end up not agreeing, but I don't want it to be because I didn't do due diligence to hear where they're coming from. Because I don't want to be yelling at them to get my way across, and I don't want them yelling at me to get their way across. That is hard.
Can I just say, this is what you just shared is critical in the office environment as well. because I think that aside from the trickle-down effect of our current political climate and how it may affect the environment that at work, where we spend so much of our time, I think that what you just shared, we have to be aware and think of that, whether we're in a task force meeting, a committee meeting, an interview, whatever it may be. So I appreciate that perspective.
Well, Francisca, I appreciate you saying that. I know some of the things that we're dealing with in our case. If I can include myself with Latinx and Chicanx, Black and brown people do share certain kinds of experiences. And when you have come from a history and a culture and a legacy of certain kind of experience, frustrations build over a long period of time. There was this poem, right? Whatever happened to a dream deferred?
Oh, yes, I know that one.
You know, and the scriptures say, you know, a hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I understand heart sickness. I understand frustration. But it says, but when it comes, it's a tree of life. And I try to be part of the solution. I don't know how long I can do it, because you can only do these things so long. You're only given so long anyway. The next president may not even want me. So I hope they do, because I still think there's some work to do.
Always work to do.
But I didn't come up here to stay anyway. Mm-hmm. I only came up here to do a work as long as I could do the work. Mm-hmm. And then it's somebody else who brings some new energy, who's more hopeful. You know, because after a while you get a little jaded and you get tired, you know, and it takes some new energy, but hopefully the same mission, the same hope, and then somebody else carries it. You know, I'd love I'd love the next person, next provost, to be a Chicano. I got to say it this way, because I know some regions who don't like that Chicanx and Latinx stuff. I'm going to just tell you, they don't like it. So, you know, I try to be inclusive in my language. Okay. But I would love that. This is University of California. The majority of our students in our population are Chicano and Latino. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the next president will be, you know? But the hope is, even when those things happen or not, the mission matters.
Indeed.
How can we effect that mission of inclusion? So I talk too much.
Rapid fire real quickly, couple questions. One word for what you hope for the UC in the next 20 years.
That's it.
Phrase. 3 words, 4 words.
Actually, some of what I would say I hope for, I'm already seeing happening. You sitting in that chair. No, I'm serious. Ain't I? See, Renee, you know what I'm talking about. I'm already seeing it happening. But what you see, you see it in its early stages. And sometimes when a seed is germinating, sometimes you're not even sure it's really there. But that seed will be a tree. And so I'm seeing elements of the thing I hope for. And there's another scripture I lean on. If you hope for that which you see not, but you have hope for it, then do we with patience wait for it, because it'll surely come. And I see the seeds of it now. I see our academic departments becoming more diverse. My expectation is that we will have rapid diversification in the next few years of the professoriate if the state will join us in partnership. Because if we're not growing our faculty, we can't diversify it. Exactly. And we do need to grow it. So I'm seeing the seeds of it. I see the policy elements of it. I see the institutional programs of it. I see the outreach programs that we have in place in the schools. And I have other things. I was talking to some of my colleagues a little earlier. We got some other plans or some things going on. I can't talk about them right now, but we're working on these things to catapult these efforts even more. So I see the seeds of it. I may not see the full bloom by the time I'm sure I won't. But it's laying the groundwork that matters. Mm-hmm. Laying the groundwork. It's step by step to the mountaintop we climb. It ain't gained in one move, but one step at a time.
Well, that was I'm going to do one more rapid fire and then we're done. But this is rapid fire. Rapid fire.
That was a gentle admonition. Go ahead.
What do you do? Obviously, your faith is strong, and I appreciate that. What do you do to stay positive in light of the challenges, the stress?
I'm crazy, Francisca.
You're crazy? That's a good answer.
Sometimes it takes being a little off. No, Prince used to have a song, Let's Get Crazy. Sometimes you need to be a little off because the world is different than your mind. So, and if the thing you're trying to do ain't what's there now, you're going to be a little out of kilter. You got to be a little comfortable with that. I'm kind of a lot comfortable with it.
Thank you, Provost Brown.